Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine Middlegames series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and we're taking a look at the amazing conclusion to the game between Stockfish and Komodo Dragon in the TCEC Season 22 SuperFinal Game 90. So this was quite a controversial position. The playing engines were assessing this very highly indeed, 1.5, 1.6. And Leela as Kibitzer was also assessing this very highly, somewhere around 0.7, 0.8. Whereas to my human eyes, it just looked pretty much completely drawn. So, well, I mean, these are always interesting situations to analyse. And I mean, I think, the general point is that, well, in general, I think the human assessment is correct. I think this is still something that we humans can still assess quite well. But of course, it's not quite as obvious or as simple as that first human instinct. What's the essence of the position, really? Well, I mean, the essence is that this dark squared bishop is absolutely horrific. Hemmed in by all the black pawns, 7 pawns, all on the same colour as the bishop. However, Komodo's done this for a very specific purpose. I mean, this h-pawn was moved to h4 to stop white from playing this g3 break, and these pawns were moved to a5 and c5 to stop the b4 break. And essentially, white doesn't have any real way of opening up the position painlessly. We can get pressure against the pawn on e5, combine knight, bishop and queen, but black's got way enough to defend that. Queen, bishop and a rook, for example, and the e5 pawn is safe. So, yeah, I was really thinking that this was nothing at all for white. There are some things that that white can do. I mean, white can consider various piece sacks against the queenside structure, taking on b6 or taking on a5, maybe picking up 3 pawns if you can pick up the c5 pawn as well. You could also try and play, a queenside break with b4, and after a takes b4, then a5. Try and break open the queenside structure, undermine this c5 pawn, and come in. I wasn't, very impressed with those at all. I think I somewhat underestimated them a little bit. I mean, the key point is that this bishop is incredibly passive. So, when you get the pawns, it's not like this bishop is really just flying into the game. So it's not like black develops a huge amount of activity when you get those pawns. On the other hand, if you start sacrificing, a piece for these pawns, this knight on d6 is a wonderful piece for black and really keeps the black position together. I don't think that's really going to be that dangerous. So essentially, my recommendation here was just stay still, don't do anything, and wait. And well, I mean, basically, when you play engine games at long time controls, fairly long time controls, 60 minutes plus 10 seconds on some serious hardware, then well, Stockfish as black, it essentially just stays still, and so does Leela. Stockfish sometimes takes on c4, but that's to set up a defensive structure that it's identified as rock solid as well. And well, we're going to have a look at this actually through Leela's defense, because Leela also does this as well. So in this position, king h2, this is Stockfish against Leela on my 18 thread machine. So rook b7, queen b2, king g7, king g1, rook b8, and you just see Leela just playing around here, not doing a great deal, just easy, no problem. We just fast forward about another 30 moves, and just at this moment Leela decides that it can switch its defensive structure. There's no need for it, but it goes to a defensive structure that Stockfish was very keen on achieving, and that's knight takes c4, b takes c4, queen d6, rook d2, bishop d8, rook d3 and bishop c7. And this is a very nice defensive structure for black. We've got the queen on d6, which covers the c5 and e5 pawns. The bishop on c7 also supports the e5 pawn. So that means that this rook on the 8 is basically free to do what it wants. This bishop covers the pawn on b6 and the queen protects the pawn on c5. It means that any sacrifices of this dark squared bishop against the queenside structure, which is basically white's way to try and get through, are just, well, they're going to be very well covered. I mean, you're only going to get 1 pawn, you're not going to get 2 pawns. So yeah, I mean, this was a sort of structure that Stockfish was setting up against Koivisto in my engine matches, and Leela against Stockfish, and this was just holding for hundreds and hundreds of moves. Just fast forward on to move 120, and you can see that not very much has happened. So that was, you know, pretty interesting, really. And I think basically, you know, the conclusion is if black doesn't do anything, then there are opportunities for white if black is careless. Because if black's careful, then it's just a draw, basically. Well, Dragon was less cautious. So rook e8 play, queen b2. And Stockfish kept on dangling this knight on c4. And here Komodo bit, and it really bit at a bad moment, really a moment where it was unable to set up this defensive structure with queen on d6, bishop d8 to c7, and it had to play the rook to d6. Now it's still possible to get the structure you want. The bishop has to come back to d8, the rook over to the third rank, and then the queen can move to d6 and the bishop to c7. But well, it's going to take quite a bit of organisation, and of course, you know, Stockfish can really just you know, take its time to prevent that from happening. So in the game, Stockfish played queen b5 against Dragon, and rook a8 was played. Quite interesting, really, to see the difference with Koivisto. Koivisto was being, you know, really careless about this, playing moves like queen f7. I'm running a good version. 94 threads, you know, it should really be seeing a lot here, but it was just allowing these sacks. And I mean, during the game, I was wondering a little bit how dangerous these sort of sacks were. You know, on the one hand, obviously white's pawns are going to be very dangerous. On the other hand, surely, you know, black can do something with this dark squared bishop and these dark squares around the white king. Well, in these positions, you know, the pawns were just rolling, and black was getting into all sorts of trouble. You know, obviously major pieces, not great blockaders, really. And well, white's got loads of ideas, like for example just playing the rook to b5 and then queen b3, rook b7, and this was working out very, very well indeed for Stockfish. So Dragon plays somewhat more cautiously here. Queen g7, king f1. And you might think that you know, that Dragon might have thought about trying to somehow get this defensive structure you know, set up, rook over, queen back somehow. This feels like it was still possible, but Dragon just chose to wait here, move around with a king, and just stay in this defensive structure, which is quite interesting. I mean, here again, Koivisto against Stockfish, just starting Stockfish off from this point. You know, Stockfish was going from this position to this position, and again, you know, reaching complete safety. So yeah, you know, I think there were still possibilities here, but yeah, Dragon just kept on waiting around, staying with the same defensive structure. And what Stockfish did was really, really nice. I mean, the big problem is that you know, when you start sacrificing pieces, black might get counterplay with g4 and f3, or g4 and h3, depending how you capture back. And if the king's still on the king side, then well, that might prove to be a little bit dangerous. So, you know, typical Petrojan style, before achieving anything, Stockfish just gets its king over to the queen side. Really, really nice strategy, you know. And well, we've talked about this, you know, previously. It's not the first time we see Stockfish doing this in the match, and yeah, you know, it just proves to be very, very effective here. Now we can see, you know, that there's going to be a sacrifice coming into a5 or c5. You know, Dragon sort of leaving that one open. The one thing that Dragon is doing is it's playing, you know, quite cleverly in actual fact. I mean, it's set up the queen and the rook on the third rank, and it's ready to react with this bishop whenever white starts opening up the queen side. Unfortunately, it doesn't prove to be enough. We're just playing through these moves. This was just agonizing shuffling, but eventually Stockfish decided that it was time. Actually, both engines were on increments, or actually maybe Stockfish was shorter of time here, but that didn't stop it from taking on a5. and going rook takes c5. Now bishop b6 comes in, rook cb5, bishop d4, and this was what was really scaring me in combination with what Dragon does next. So this bishop on d4, very strong, activating itself, pointing a little bit towards the white king. Queen a3, rook d8, c5, and now g4. And black is basically just trying to open up diagonals here, open up another diagonal and come in with a queen. And now we've got this combination of queen and bishop coming in, attacking the white king. And this was really the type of positions that I wasn't sure about at all. You know, was this really going to be good for white, or was black just going to be active? I mean, these pawns are very dangerous, but they're yeah, you know, they're not 100% easy to advance. Actually, Stockfish was assessing this as +2, +3 already, and even with you know, really very little time, only playing on increments, and well, you know, playing all my engine matches at long time controls, you know, from this position, it just seems to be a complete win for white. But really only Stockfish is completely convincing. You know, when I was playing these positions, you know, seeing that Dragon was really up and down with its evaluations, whereas yeah, you know, in principle Stockfish was really pretty clear. I mean, it's an amazing position, right? All these pawns. So this was a lovely move from Stockfish, rook c3, just offering up this this bishop. Give me your beautiful bishop, and then afterwards my pawns will run. It was just at this moment during the SuperFinal that Stockfish suddenly displayed a 0.45 evaluation. You suddenly thought, my goodness, you know, what's happening? I think it was based on the fact that these positions are incredibly complicated. Again, you know, Dragon was all over the place with the evaluations when I was running it on my on my hardware. But it just seems that this is just too strong for white. I mean, white advances the queenside pawns, grabs the c5 pawn, and you know, somehow just manages to protect its king enough. Here the queen can go back to b2 if there's a check. And of course, you know, these are advancing as well. You might do a quick opportunistic sack and then d7. You know, it really is too much. So let's have a look. What sort of nice games did we have here? Queen f2, queen b2, queen takes h4, rook b6, just looking to play d6 here. Queen h3, queen b3, setting up a discovered check. King f8, queen c3, eyeing some checks somewhere. Queen g2, rook b2, queen g5, the pawns have gone, and now, funnily enough, black having cleared the kingside pawns, the rook now invades, and we get a mating attack against the king. Queen e5, king f7, d6, rook c6, queen e7, king g8, d7, rook a8, d8, queen. Rook, in actual fact, and that didn't last much longer. I mean, these positions are yeah, you know, really incredible, but beautiful. I mean, really absolutely beautiful play there. Komodo wanted to keep its bishop, and actually, I mean, Koivisto was also, you know, very keen on all sorts of ideas, like, for example, trying to play queen e1, you know, and just keep the white king pinned down to the back rank there. But again, somehow there always seemed to be a way to get out. Rook c2 there, king a2, and then afterwards we're going to start expanding again, and then eventually play d6. It's yeah, it's just really impossible for black to keep control all over the board, really. Sacrificing these pawns has, well, restrained white, made white a lot more cautious about advancing, but long term these kingside pawns are going to be very, very useful, of course. So Dragon played queen f2 check, queen b2, queen g3. Doesn't feel completely convincing. Rook b8, rook c8, takes, and now d6, takes. And look at that power of the pawns there. You know, just no way for black to fight. And after queen f2, takes. Funnily enough, Leela on its experimental net was sort of giving black the benefit of the doubt for a draw here, but Stockfish was at you know, stratospheric levels, really. You have to give up the d6 pawn to get loose, but then queen a5, and well, you know, this is a lot of pawns for an ending, and Stockfish won this without any problems. So a really, interesting and beautiful idea. I mean, I think in principle, those engine evaluations were not particularly good. It must be said that Leela, just the old 40B net on just the normal release versions of the search was much less optimistic. It was just about 0.38, 0.39, 0.4, which is I think is a fair enough evaluation. There's chances for white in this position, but they're not really enough. So that was fascinating, but it's also fascinating to see all the possibilities that the the engines discover. If you're incautious or if you put your pieces on the wrong place. But in general, just staying still, I think, is good enough. And I was, just thrilled watching this game, live unfold, because I thought, knight takes c4 was not a good idea, but I did think that, the black should still be able to hold fairly comfortably. And seeing, Stockfish maneuver around put its king all the way over to a2, just like Petrosian used to, and then this beautifully calculated sacrifice where, despite the active black bishop and all the activity of black's queen, that these pawns were turning out to be just way too much for the black rooks. I thought it was a wonderful game, and really just thrilling to watch. It's that's the best of the TCC, really. When you're seeing these sort of amazing positions unfold and seeing this incredible technique, normally from Stockfish, as time gets low. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. This is probably going to be my last long video on the SuperFinal. I've spent a lot of time looking at sort of controversial moments, unusual moments from the SuperFinal. Probably going to do quite a few shorter videos on other little special moments from there, and then afterwards concentrate on the subfinal, the bonus event between Leela and Komodo Dragon, and we're going to see how those match up head to head. Very excited for that one. I think it's going to be a very close match. All right then, so I mean, if you enjoyed the video, why not give it a like or subscribe to the channel? Take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, which is full of magnificent engine games, some great analysis, I think, and lots of super tips for working with engines, improving your own games, lots of never seen before training games between me and the engines, which didn't always work out in my favor. And otherwise, thanks very much for watching this video. Thanks for everyone who's joined, subscribed during the SuperFinal. Hope you enjoyed it, and keep on watching the TCC. Keep on following this channel for lots more videos about engine games. Thanks for watching.